I want to turn, if I can, in this show to an account in Luke 10. It's only found in Luke, so as we journey through Luke, this is one of those particular passages to Luke. Matthew and Mark tell the story of 12 being sent out, and although there are similarities, there are some very striking differences. 70 are sent out. That tells me that already in these early days of the ministry of Jesus, there is really gathering around him a growing number of people who are followers, although not part of the inner circle of disciples. There's 120 by the time we reach Acts chapter 2. So 70 are sent out. Why 70? Well, Moses in the Old Testament, you read Numbers chapter 11, selected 70 elders to help him. 70, they're all special kinds of numbers. And it shows that Jesus was relating to a wider group than merely the 12. And the practical nature of Jesus sending out the disciples 2 by 2 is worth noting. So I'm going to read, if I can, to you from that particular chapter, verses 17 through to 20. Here is what we read. The 72 returned with joy and said, Lord, even the demons submit to us in your name. He replied, I saw Satan falling like lightning from heaven. I've given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. However, do not rejoice that the spirits submit to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven. Now, these 70 or 72, these disciples know what it is to return after they've been sent out on this particular mission. Now, I don't know about you. This is how I think we Aussies would say about them when they come back. They're all pumped up. They've been excited at what they've been involved in. They've really got themselves on the edge. They feel that what they've experienced is unique. It would certainly be unique to their life then, for Jesus to send them out and then for them to return back and tell an account, a story of what things were like. That they would feel that they were full of their own achievements, things that had happened. Perhaps they exaggerate just a little bit. They see this star falling. They talk in very grandiose terms about that experience. But it clearly was something that made an indelible mark upon their lives. They felt the privilege that lent them to perhaps an exaggeration of emotion. But when they come back, they've got much to say about what has happened on that journey. I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. I've given, it's a marvelous picture that is there, that Jesus recognizes what has happened in them. Now, these disciples have this experience, these 70 or 72 people have this experience of what has happened to them. But Jesus reminds them what their real priority ought to be. And so we read in verse 20, however, do not rejoice that the spirits submit to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven. Now, I think that's worth unpacking, making sense of in some way. Don't rejoice in merely something that you've achieved or something you feel that God has graciously done through you, but rejoice in the fact that you belong to him. Rejoice that you're his. Now, I think that's a very, very important thing. It's important for those of us involved in ministry and in Christian leadership. We can easily talk and brag about the great things, all these things that we've achieved in our lives. And the one thing that matters more than anything else is that we belong to him, that our names are written in the book of life, that we know what it is, that we are identified with Jesus Christ. And I think that what Jesus is saying to these disciples is, don't get yourself on too much of a high. Don't get ahead of yourself. Don't be full of yourself. We need to be a people ready to be able to declare what's true. But that you belong to me is what matters most of all. And I think that really has a contemporary ring about it. It has something that reminds us all. And in this journey to the cross, it's going to be important to the followers of Jesus that they keep things in real perspective. You know, I once remember going to Texas. It's way back in the late 70s when I was beginning my ministry. And when I went there, I remember going to Galveston Island, having a photograph taken. And I remember showing it to people, to England, where I was living at the time. And I said, that's a picture of me at Galveston. Oh, and that's the Pacific Ocean behind me. And then I thought afterwards, gosh, I just got that out of perspective, didn't I? There's me with the privilege of standing before the Pacific Ocean. Keep things in perspective. And Jesus reminds those disciples that all of us are to rejoice, not just in what we do, not just in what we achieve, but to rejoice that we are actually God's.